So the panelists in front of you have got amazing experience in this space. But we can start by quick remarks by Dinah, followed by Marion and Gitau, about your current experiences and how climate mobility is shaping urban dynamics and housing dynamics in your respective places of work and also experiences. Please, Dinah.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Dr. Mbadi, for that elaborate introduction. I'm glad this morning to be here for our side event, which is very timely, given the experiences that we've been going through as a city, as a country, and I think even as a region, the East Africa region, in terms of climate-induced displacement and disasters that has been affecting communities. So in terms of my experience, I would want to share more on local displacements, especially within cities, in the informal settlements where I work a lot, and where we have been interacting with communities in projects regarding access to weather and climate information. And what we are seeing happening in this informal settlement is first, the communities that are settled in these areas themselves being displaced within the settlements, having to move from areas of disaster that have been affected, and also these informal settlements also being the destination that take up population that is being displaced from other areas. And in terms of the triggers that I am looking at here is issues like flood and also urban heat, but of more concern for our projects has been the issue of flood. When we talk of the informal communities that we've been interacting with, what we are seeing is also communities that are disadvantaged economically and also in terms of capital, social capital to deal with these disasters. Looking at the space of policy and what is causing this situation, I would talk of connecting this again with housing, the issue of limited or lack of access to affordable housing, where these communities can access housing that is of standard and that is safe. And then also, of course, the issue of inclusivity in planning and planning frameworks that allows for planning for these communities and to have access to affordable housing. And also in terms of issues of policy, I don't want to call it policy blindness, but I will call it that way, policy blindness that is, again, when we are looking at housing policy, is it focusing on issues of climate-induced migration? Is it focusing on issues of climate mitigation and resilience? And also, is it focusing on the millions of communities who are living in the informal settlements to ensure that housing that we are providing is offering space for them? Yeah, so I think that's my point.
Thank you. Marion, based on your wide experience in this country and also in the city of Nairobi, maybe you could also give us a practical example of climate mobility and housing interactions. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning, everyone. For me, I would like to share on my current experience and what we are doing, because as Dina has shared, we know that there's a big link between climate and housing, but a lot of times we are not prepared, even as countries, even as cities. We are not prepared on the shocks that come with climate. So I will share briefly on what we have done as AFD, even in terms of developing tools that can be used across the world to help us to be able to prepare better in terms of climate and housing, and also to be able to see also how we can mitigate on issues of climate. So I will talk about 3 tools. We have A, B, and C. Tool A helps us in mapping, and we are able to classify settlements as whether they are high risk, low risk, or mid risk in terms of climate vulnerability. And then we have a tool is very critical, and we are supporting government of Kenya in terms of capacity for them to also be able to classify the settlements within Kenya in terms of, are they risky settlements in terms of climate, or are they not risky? Because that would now again be able to help in identifying what needs to be done. Then Of course, something else that we know that is really ignored is the role of communities, even in understanding the risks that come with them. If you go to a settlement, for example, the community will be able to tell you this is where it floods. They'll be able to tell you when it floods, things are this way. So Tool B now again incorporates the community views in terms of just classifying. Again, going ahead with Tool A and being able to say, yes, according to the classification, the GIS classification, we can confirm that, yes, flooding affects us in this way. Then we have another tool, Tool C, which I believe should really be embraced, because Tool C helps us to be able to calculate the greenhouse gas emissions that come with any infrastructure that we do. If, for example, you do a road, you cannot assume that it has no effect on the environment or on climate, because the trucks that we are using, the tarmac that we are doing, everything that we are doing has an impact. So this Tool C will helps us to be able to calculate and see what is the level of greenhouse gas emissions that come with the infrastructure that we are doing, whether it's housing or not. And then in line with that, we are now able to see how do we mitigate. So you're actually using data to be able now to say this is the impact of what we are doing, and then again saying this is how we can be able to mitigate.
And this applies across the country, I believe.
This applies across the country, and these are tools that we can be able to share with any party that is interested.
Thank you, thank you. Thank you. Our city manager, Gitau, I know you're not sitting pretty in Nakuru, because we have read that the Lake Nakuru is also trying to reclaim its space. Many settlements are affected by rising water levels of the lake. Maybe you can expound a little bit on that and your current experiences and how this has affected housing in the new city of Nakuru.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
As you have said, is that Nakuru is experiencing some of those challenges that are caused by the climate change. Rise in waters is one of the phenomena that have really given us challenges in Nakuru, that has even displaced one of the estate called Mwariki, whereby Mwariki Estate, when you go there, when it dries up, unfortunately you find that the water recedes and creates space. And you find we have challenges of the people who own those parcels of land, given that any time the water recedes, they go back to those spaces. That talks about that we also need a policy to also be able to compensate them because they are displaced. But due to the challenges that they face, you find that when it rains, they are displaced. They become squatters within the cities, and this one now increases the level, the sizes of the informal settlement that we have. And then when it dries up, they go back there. Tells you the vulnerability of the people who are affected. And you find most of the cases, the people who occupy the spaces that are affected by the climate changes happen to be the urban poor, who we commonly call the urban invisible. So you rarely find the people who are opulent occupying those spaces. So anytime we have those challenges, it tends to affect a larger number of the community that we have within the city. Built there, we also experience fault line in Nakuru, and the fault line have gone to an extent that they are also affecting some of the estates like Kaptembwa, where you can when it rains, some of the people who occupy the fault line, their houses submerged, they cave in because of the fault line that we have. And in the policy aspect, we feel that we also need to do a geological study for the city that map out, and I'm happy what Marion have talked about, whereby you engage the community, because most of the time, my experience has been that there's some indigenous knowledge that lies with the residents of the city that you're not going to get even when you go do the PhD, you do your masters. And this, if at all we harness the indigenous knowledge, we are going to know where in yesteryears where the river passed, where the swamps were. But the urbanization has concreted all those spaces that still aggravate the levels of the climate effect that we experience within the cities. Yeah.
Thank you, Gitau. And listeners, for your information, we have some background music, so we are blessed this morning. It may not occur in all the side events, so ours is a special one. Gitau, again, back to you.
Yeah.
I know we've been complaining, you have raised issues that we have one or two settlements that are affected by climate change. And of course, we have citizens, residents moving from their dear homes. But what are some of the institutional and capacity gaps that Nakuru City has? But also moving beyond the gaps, really. We should never be talking about gaps at this stage of our development.
Yes, sure.
We should be talking about positive steps that we are taking to ensure that we address the gaps and have our dear residents live in harmony. So what gaps do you face, and what positive steps are you taking as a city to address the matters climate mobility?
Some of the gap we face is the planning,
Okay.
planning, because that happened to be a gap, given that the resident who occupy those, those spaces, they are rightfully there because the planning was done, their development was approved. It's only that in our planning never anticipated the climatic change that we're experiencing. But I would say that if we did our homework well, we would have maybe anticipated that these are some of the places that are going to be affected in future by the changes in the climate condition that we're experiencing. The other gaps is the policy gaps on addressing such challenges when they happen. For example, the compensation for the people who are affected. It have taken years for them to be compensated, to be relocated to higher levels, where they are going to have to resume back to their livelihood. So these are some of the gaps that we have. The other gap is in for example, is the policies. We need to develop policies on how we address the emergencies as they occur within the cities. And what we've done, we thank the World Bank. They funded the 5 cities. They were doing the city resilience strategies, which Nakuru benefited from, and we have the World Bank through that program. We've been able to map out areas within the cities that are prone to those climatic shocks, and we can be able now to address them in our planning currently, where something most of the people have never realized. For Nakuru, we don't have high rises because we are limited to the floors that you can build. We are currently having an 18-floor house being constructed under construction, but we've not been having such because we've been limited on the number of the floors we can go, given the fault lines we have within the city. And what we need now to do is to implement some of those strategy that highlighted some of those issues and how best they can be done. In fact, the strategy identified 79 projects that need to be done. Then also, we realized that topographically, Nakuru city is a basin. Any front from which you come to the city, you are coming down to a city. We have a lake, which is in a park there. We also, on the upper side, we have Menengai Forest, we have a crater. So ecologically features that are very sensitive within the city, meaning even as we do the development, we are limited by some of those ecologically sensitive areas that we have. So the way forward is to ensure that we do the geological study as suggested by even Kenya. The other day, one of their roads caved in, and they are proposing to do a geological study, then implementing the proposed project that have been identified by the city resilience strategy, by also limiting approval of the development along those vulnerable areas. Yeah.
This is a question to you based on your global experience, but also based on your Nairobi City County experience. What gaps do you think or are there, and how are you tapping into innovative and novel approaches? For example, working with communities. Gitau just said that they have a challenge of planners, that they do not have enough professionals and experts in this. But did you know that we also have experts out there in form of communities who live this experience and have a good idea about what can be done? But first question is, overall, from your own experience, what is the current situation in terms of gaps that exist within our cities and municipalities, and what are you doing to address these gaps? Innovative ways to address these gaps.
Thank you. And I'll share now based on my experience. And I'm glad that I worked for the city. I've worked for both national government and worked for the city. And just to echo one of the things that Gitau has shared, I think when you look at cities, we have huge gaps. One of the main gaps that I see is a capacity gap. And I do not want to mention the county, but I don't know how many of us saw an interview in Senate recently when somebody was being asked about qualifications of fire officers. So again, we are saying that we know that even for us to be able to address climate issues and how they affect the way we live, we must have qualified people who are able to address those issues. But do we have that capacity in our local authorities? I would say no. And of course, there are a lot of issues because, again, why are our local authorities or counties not able to retain qualified staff? What is the problem? So it's a deep-rooted thing. But then, of course, I also see a gap in terms of data, because even as we think about climate-induced mobility, people coming or moving because of floods, for example, or because of drought, are we able to keep track of that data? Are we able to separate urbanization because of other issues that are not necessarily climate-related? So there are huge gaps. Again, even the way we are financing urban development in our cities. For example, climate strategies will go even for 30 years or so. But how are we doing our budgets, even as county governments? We are looking at about 3 to 5 years. So again, there's a mismatch. So for me, I see huge gaps. But I think for me, I would say, and looking at my experience also as having coordinated the Mukuru SPA, I think for me, what I would say about dealing with these capacity gaps or the gaps that we see in the city, in not just Kenya, I believe it's an African issue, is for us to move from this issue of silos. A county government cannot be able to resolve issues on their own. And I think for me, the Mukuru SPA was such a beautiful experience, and I'm glad I was part of it, because it clearly demonstrated that you can actually bring 42 partners on board and be able to do a plan that is integrated. So I think for me, it's just letting everybody play a part. The cake is too big for just one person. Yes.
Thank you. Over to you, Diana. What gaps are you seeing, and what innovative strategies would you recommend to help our dear cities and municipalities and the urban space fill up these gaps?
Thank you, Dr. I think I would want to add a little bit discussing on the aspect of policy silos and fragmented policy approaches. And I'm looking at it especially for us from the housing sector, for us who are really looking from the housing sector. I've been interacting with a number of housing strategies for different countries, working on a project on access to affordable housing for communities. And what you see coming out from these policy documents, whether it is the National Development Strategy for Zimbabwe, whether it is the Agenda 4 for Kenya, whether it is the DIRA 250 for Tanzania, or whatever you're talking about, you tend to see a gap in terms of seeing these policies converge at some point. The crisis is converging. We have a climate crisis converging with the housing crisis. But then when it comes to approaches and the policy approaches that we are having, we have each sector having their policy approach. In the housing sector, we are really focused on meeting the numbers. We are running towards meeting the numbers to meet the backlog. In the climate, we are so focused on mitigation and adaptation. But at what point do we have these policies converging? So if we have the policy silos, even the responses and the interventions that we are implementing remain not converging at some point, and that is seen very clearly coming out even in the kind of housing that we are providing now when we are trying to meet the housing targets. And also going back to ourselves as urban planners and looking at our planning laws and regulations. Do we also have the aspect where we are clearly recognizing the role of climate displacement in informing housing demand? So that then when you are providing housing and you are coming in to supply housing, we have in mind that there's this movement of people, we are projecting for it, we are accommodating it, and it is clearly stipulated in our laws and regulations, so that even when it comes to implementing development control, planning aspects, and all that is covered. Yes.
Thank you. Now that you've talked about relocation, this is a very sensitive matter. Politically, it's very sensitive. But moving forward, in situations where people must move, where relocation must happen because of unfortunate climate circumstances, what do you think is the best way to go about this? Gitau, you mentioned that we have 1 or 2 settlements that perennial affected by by flooding or lake level rise.
Okay.
Going forward, because we need to house these people in dignified spaces, what do you think ought to be the best way to go about this legally, politically, economically, socially? What is the city thinking about in terms of addressing this matter?
I really appreciate the affordable housing project we have in this country. Is a project in the right direction, going vertical given the constraint we are having for the spaces within our cities. I also feel that the massive subdivision of the land in this country is not going in the right direction because of the food security. So when affordable housing came in place, to me I feel that going vertical is beneficial for us. And I feel in order to cater for such cases, we can also do the social houses. There are difference between the affordable housing and social houses. Because social houses are more affordable, and I believe that the easiest compensation of the people who've been affected by some of those floods can be housed in the social houses. Because that one they can be able to afford, in their livelihood as they continue. That would be a better way of compensating them, without compensating the land itself, given that we also have in the constraint of the parcels of the land that we have within our city. So social houses is a solution to the compensation of those who have been affected, because it is also within the political space. It is politically accepted, and legally still it is also going to provide opportunities for those, because even when they occupied those spaces, they were still incurring some costs in their livelihood, which I believe is translated in the social housing that will be able to compensate them. Or maybe set aside some parcels of land within the cities, or neighboring the cities, where still some construction for such houses can be done to cater for them. And I believe that will be the low-lying fruits for their challenges. Yeah.
Thank you, Gitau. And thank you for highlighting the aspect of social housing. In Nairobi alone, we have in excess of 90,000 families affected by climate. These people cannot wait. So Marion, I know you've worked as a housing officer in the city county of Nairobi. Can these people wait? Can government say, okay, fine, dear citizens, we also give you an opportunity to do self-housing so that you can supplement? Do you think this can work? Or you think people are not rich enough, are not resourced enough to do their own housing? Do you think there's an opportunity for community residents to supplement government efforts? Because really, affordable housing, social housing may not meet immediate needs of the people. That's a fact, given the speed and urgency. Please.
Thank you for the question. And I would say absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. Affordable housing is a very good program, but we can still supplement, because I think even for us as Kenyans, we know that all of us cannot be able to access that housing at the same time. Again, of course, we have the issues of affordability. So, and when you look at again climate and housing, I would first want to say two things. That number one, even as we think about housing for the displaced, where they are going, we can also be able to address housing where they are, so that we are able to mitigate the issues of climate. And there again, they can be able to do self-help housing with support. And sometimes, and many times I would say, we assume that housing may be very expensive. But I want to take us back to our project, Kambimoto. Some of us who know Kambimoto. The Kambimoto project that was supported by Pamoja Trust then is a project that, again, was done with the community, and people were able to afford. So I think it's just about having innovative approaches where communities can come together. And I'm glad to see FSD here, because again, even loans, how do we give communities small loans where they are able to pay after a certain stage of construction? Once they are done, give them another loan. Again, we have innovative approaches, which I believe we all know about, but many of us are not taking the risk to move forward and implement those approaches. So I would say, yes, it is doable, and I believe we can be able to do that, and communities can actually be able to do that with support.
Okay. In the next 1 minute, I will be handing over your mics to the audience so that they can also air their concerns and also ask you easier questions than the ones that I'm asking. Dinah, finally, before we hand over our mics to the audience, in terms of strategies, I know you have been involved in quite a number of plans and strategies. Which is one good plan that you have sat in or supported, and you think this one, yes, addressed matters, climate mobility, and also giving communities and residents an opportunity to air and make meaningful contributions towards their future?
Thank you so much. Before I respond or I give the example of one of the innovative approach that I have interacted with, that I've seen giving communities a chance and an opportunity to be able to resiliently face issues of climate change and housing access, I would want just to talk a bit on the issue of what is happening now in terms of the displacement that we are seeing in the informal settlements and moving forward. Because I'm looking at the question or the point that Marion is raising on the issue of where the communities are living today. Because even if we want the communities to have affordable housing, we have a situation that is with us. These communities are here, and chances are some of these communities will still be here. So what is happening now when you're seeing this displacement happening is that the question or the answer of the temporary shelters, where we've seen communities being able to be sheltered during times of disaster. And I think it is very important for us to be able to empower communities to be able to take advantage or to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are within their communities. And tying to the example is what we've been working with. I've been interacting with a project with Resurgence and KDI of enabling communities to access, working with communities to be able, and Kenya Met, to be able to access weather and climate information to enable them to adapt and to mitigate when these disasters happen. Because, Daktari, I'm sitting here and thinking sometimes movement may be an adaptation strategy by itself. That sometimes people have to move, especially in times of disaster, people have to move to safer places. So how are communities informed of disasters happening? How is movement planned? And where are they moving to? If they're moving to these temporary shelters, how are these shelters also provided with facilities like water and sanitation, like safe drinking water, so that also we don't have the crisis of the kind of crisis that we saw in 2024 when we had displacement happening in Madare. So for me, I'm also thinking about supporting the local community systems that can enable communities, even when they are moving within their settlements, they move safely. They are not also trapped in areas of disaster. We also have issues like opening up of the access, providing sanitation and water and sanitation facilities are key when it comes to also climate adaptation and mitigation, and to ensure that they are empowered on that. And then also moving forward, again, I will keep talking about the issues of housing. I think a lot is happening when it comes to housing provision, but then the government cannot do enough as long as we are not having the really low informal communities also being to access this housing. Yeah.
Amazing. Audience, you have had experiences from the three panelists, but I can see in the audience quite a number of us from outside Kenya, and I know this is not only a problem or issue dynamic confined to our space. We have flooding in Dar es Salaam. I've seen this in Mozambique, with all due respect, Namibia as well, South Africa, Nigeria. So this is your opportunity to tell us what really prevents citizens, residents, our municipalities, our cities from addressing matters climate mobility, because this is a problem that we have to address as long as we are thinking about sustainable urban futures. The mics will be handed over to you. Kindly ask easy questions to ask. I've asked them very hard questions, so the opportunity now remains for the audience. We have a number of mics. By show of hands, this was the first one, second one, and then third one. We start with this row first.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator and the panel. My name is Town Planner Fumilayo Modebola Fadimine from the International Society of Cities and Regional Planners, ISOCAP. I'm quite happy based on the discussions we've had so far and from the comment of the moderator that said it's not just about Kenya. For instance, in Nigeria, we have a community, you can Google it, it's called Ayetoro. Ayetoro is a coastal town in southwestern part of Nigeria, particularly in Ondo State. And the community is being swept out by sea incursion. Now we're asking about, there was a question that was thrown at, my brother talked about, is it Nakuru now? Yes, yeah. That talked about Nakuru. The question was, what are the policy interventions? How do you help these people? Now the problem we had in Ayetoro was the historical sentiments that the community residents have about that land, that this is our land, we cannot move out of it. Though the old community has been swept away by sea incursion, and to relocate them from a place, from where the incursion happened, to a new place is a problem, because they don't want to go there. They want the place to be rehabilitated. They want that place to be, the land that has been swept away, to be brought back, you know. And that might pose a lot of problem, particularly looking at the time. So now, using your Nakuru experience, how have you been able to relocate people that have been displaced by climate change from where they were to where they are now? I think it's a very good one that if we can get, we can borrow from such experiences. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Aaron Green. I'm the lead person, policy and advocacy at Kenya National Waste Speakers Welfare Association. Just from the identity, Kenya National Waste Speakers Welfare Association, waste sector or waste is a very important dynamic in issues around cities across the world, and waste is the third largest or the fourth lucrative business in the whole world, and it affects cities so much. Our policies around waste management in cities across is something that is very interesting and wanting, because the waste management in most cities are, from our experience and what is there, more so here in Nairobi, is done by informal waste pickers. And the aspect of waste pickers being in this makes them not be involved in issues of informing policy, because policies that are in place so far have a very serious disconnect with the realities of what has happened. So I would ask that, my question here is, how are the informal waste pickers being involved in forming policy based on their perspectives due to their experience of doing this work? The third bit of it is, when policies are being put into place to be able to make transitions or informing transitions, like what is being seen in Nairobi, where the function for waste management is moving from the county governments to national governments, where are we having these people? From a climate justice aspect, the people come in as the main people. So how are the informal waste pickers being involved? Now we are talking about the urban forum. We have Kenya, she's talked about her country and other places. And policies are being fragmented and the siloing of all these things. And we're talking about climate mobility, because when climate change comes in, there are things that happen. How are we developing frameworks to be able to harmonize policies to have the adequate housing or the aspects that we're talking about in Africa? Thank you.
Thank you. The last question from this row.
Yeah.
You have the mic.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. And thank you for a very esteemed panelist. My name is Joe Motori, Muungano wa Vijiji and Slum Dwellers International. And I think we are looking at very difficult challenges that our cities face. So I don't think we'll be doing any justice if we ask easy questions, because we are looking at very hard problems. Listen to the panelists. I think the problems and the challenges and the gaps that they talked about, so we have been talking about these for the last 20 years. We are looking at policy gaps, we are looking at land issues, we are looking at planning questions, we are looking at very siloed development, very siloed approach. I remember the Nakuru issue. We lost almost 50 million shillings in one of our housing projects in Nakuru, totally submerged in the lake. So when we went to what do you call them? KWS, this is the county problem. County problems say this is a national government problem. Ministry of, they should compensate. We are looking at all this. So for me, the question, very hard. And respect, Marion, you have been in this space for many, many years. Diana, an accomplished, very committed to this space, especially housing, cities. So all these challenges that we are talking about, what are these one or two things that we need to do that unlocks everything else? Otherwise, we'll be talking about this year in, year out. I was privileged to be part of a Commonwealth Housing Group, and we talked about these challenges, tenure issues, planning, financing, housing finance, another ballgame altogether. But what is this one or two things that we need to do that unlocks everything? Otherwise, we'll still be talking about silo development, gaps in data. I believe there is enough data and information, but it's very disjointed. Also issues of credibility. Initially, when we started working with the city, nobody trusted community. Marion talked about the community knowledge, indigenous knowledge. Nobody trusted that data up until we partnered with the University of Nairobi. Thank you.
Thank you, Muturi. For those three questions, let me make it easy for the panelists. Number one, I think we're starting from the last viewer, speaker here. He's requesting that we move from talk to action. So we need from you an example where people have now moved a step higher to now put things in on the ground and try and make an impact on the ground. And then secondly is about the issue of the waste. And you know very well that waste sometimes may also contribute to flooding in our cities. If waste is not managed well, there goes our drains and there goes the riverways flooded, courtesy of waste that we have not taken care of. And then thirdly is the issue of the sentimental value that we attach to some of these places that we live in. The Nigerian example, for example. I am sure the settlements in Nakuru city, many people born there, work there, live there, invested there. So this is beyond even sentiment. It means everything to them. So what is it that we can do to address matters of such sensitivity? And then we can now take questions from the other row after you give us your highlights on this. Who goes first? Marion, kindly.
Thank you very much. And I want to address the issue raised by Muturi. And I also want to make this very difficult for all of us. When you look at because we all know what needs to be done, but why are we not doing it? When you look at even development finance, and I always like giving an example, even of Kibera, for example, how much money have we put in that place? Is our civil society accountable for the resources that they are getting? Are we accountable? Do we have consequences? When services, for example, are not provided, Muturi, do we have consequences? So I think for me, we need to move a step further and start, because we have a beautiful, we have the Agenda 2063, for example. When we are here as Africans, we know what needs to be done. What happens when a nation does not do it? What happens when a nation does not do it? So are we able to mandate African countries, even under the Agenda 2063 or even the National Urban Agenda? Because we have beautiful documents, but there is no consequence. When nothing happens, we have no consequences. When civil society, for example, receives funding to do a project, for example, in an informal settlement, who follows up? If things are not done the right way, are there consequences? So I think for me is moving, we know what needs to be done, Muturi, but things are not being done the right way. So let's move to a point of seeing consequences when things are not done. And I think that way we'll all be able to play our game and play it cool. And I leave the rest to be able to address the other issues.
Yeah, thank you very much. The question on what we've done in Nakuru is an issue, is a pending issue. And as the moderator said, that is an issue that is affecting some of these challenges we are facing, mostly in the global south. They are the same in most of these cities. But for Nakuru, as Muturi has said, if you come to address that issue of the compensation, you find that there are so many players. And that's the problem. We have the KWS. They are saying this lake is managed by the KWS. Now we have the residents still. And also, if you look at the LAD players in this country, we have 3 players. We have the National LAD Commission, we have the counties, and we also have the national government. The titling is given by another person. The person who approved the development is another person. And then we also have another who is the custodian of the public land. So the silo working is an issue, and also having so many players. So no wonder I was saying, anytime those guys go back to their land because they have that attachment, they have not been compensated. If they were compensated, they wouldn't be going back there. You know, with them, as others pray for rain, others are praying not rain. Because, you know, those are the conflicting interests we have, and that's the challenge we have. And I believe that the way Mariana said, the way out now is to we work together, all the agencies work together, and we have solutions and consequences so that we can be able to also respect the humanly ways of our residents.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And just to build on that, I just wanted to reflect with Muturi and try to reflect on whether really do we have one solution for everything. I think it's also important to appreciate that context issues and try to seek more of what my colleague is talking about here in terms of coordination of what we are doing, so that we don't have everybody in their corner doing small things. We have, and especially also the issue of intergovernmental coordination, even with the counties and the local authorities, because I was also thinking about the role that the intermediary cities play when it comes to absorbing these populations. But then linking back to the question of sentimental, approach to how people feel about their places where they are settled, and also involvement of the waste collectors when it comes to having them as part of policy, informing policy and the policy dialogue space. We cannot talk enough. It may look like talk, but we cannot talk enough about community participation and effective and efficient community participation, and also intentional community participation. Because maybe also when we look at how we do community participation, sometimes it's just informing the community, not really having the community participate effectively. And borrowing from some of the projects that Marion was talking about that we have worked with communities, we've seen communities even seed space for projects depending with, and also Muturi has interacted with a number of these projects with what Muungano is doing. If communities, and I'm sure Muungano will be sharing their experiences in some events here, that if they are really effectively involved in every step of the project implementation, then it becomes easier for them, to be able to see the bigger picture of whatever it is that we are working for, and that promotes sustainability and also accountability.
Thank you. I think you've ended on a very high note that planning should actually embrace community and citizen expertise. Because going forward, this is actually working with the heart of the city. These are people who experience the climate mobility dynamics and are affected most. So they have it in their hearts that we need to improve, and we can improve this way. The last set of questions from this row, and I think there's one person from just this row, one person, and then we can take some final questions from that row. You are
Sorry,
one?
I was given the mic, so I'll just start.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you for
ahead.
this, and I really agree with Muturi. I just want to point everyone in the room to some resources we've got online. I feel the other problem is we're all begging for data, but when there's data online, people don't have time to read it. So we've worked with, I'm at CETA with FSD Kenya. We've worked with the county government of Nakuru and Kipra to do a baseline housing report. It's available on our website. We've worked with the county to create a very small pilot land information management system. It should be launched. We've worked with Muungano through AMT to look at the time and cost of building 2 typologies, one in Nakuru, which is the bungalows, one in near Kambimoto in Huruma, which is 2 stories, it can be 3. And we worked with CAF on that. Every single day we had someone saying, this is what you can build at. It came to 20,000 shillings a square meter a year ago, and everyone said that's too cheap, but that's what we counted. So can we build on that? I think our frustration is we just feel government doesn't want to enable change. If they did, we have the solutions. We really do. As FSD Kenya, all our progress in financial innovation has been in rural Kenya, not urban Kenya, because in urban Kenya, you're just caught up in the regulatory, the no, don't do this, no, you can't do this, blockages. Let's just call a spade a spade. We really, if we cared, we have the knowledge and the willpower. So that's my point. Thank you.
You represent FSD. So we have these resources online that we can make reference to. Thank you for that, audience. You now have that good reference point. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much. My name is Laureen from Smart City Solutions, and my question will be mostly on the housing side. We mostly see densification as a solution to the urban population problems that we are having, but then the question is, how do we ensure that the infrastructure is more climate informed rather than densifying and compiling risk to, yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, I'm Emily Wangare from Mathare, Muungano wa Wanavijiji. So my question is, we are talking about affordable housing, and in Kibera, we have seen in television government telling us that Nairobi Dam is almost full, and if we experience another rain, people will die. We have affordable housing in Kibera. Government is giving us 10,000 and asking a deposit of 30 and 48,000. Why should they take the 10,000, accommodate people so that we are not killed in the next rain? If they are really offering solution, and if they really have the community at heart. Thank you.
One more question from that row or from the audience? One last, yes, next to the cameraman.
Hello, morning. My name is James Nyaga from PGF, Planning Green Futures UK. We have heard about data. Everybody has talked about data. And one thing that has captured me is we have not really, or rather, there is a need to realize that the largest part of the population, globally and locally, is youth. Whereby we are looking at people below the age of, let's say 30, is about 60% of the population. And one thing the youths are equipped with is technology. Yeah, we see things like AI, data management, like we can just come up with a solution to these things very easily. Currently, we are working on conducting youth engagement across the country, where we will be looking at how the youths can be involved in the sustainability project, climate action, through, and not for us to teach them, to learn from how they can utilize the skills on how to integrate AI in things to do with mobility. There's things like e-mobility, which is the new thing. There is things to do with resource management, like water, care facilities, and so on. So how are you involved in youth integration into for sustainability? Because at the end of the day, we are all not here for a long time. We'll be out, and there will be new people who will come in. Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Okay, we can have responses from the audience. From the panelists, yes.
Yes, a quick one on the infrastructure that we are currently having, the smart infrastructure. There are also climate resilience, and densification helps to create more spaces. For example, in Nakuru, we are having a program we are calling Sponge City Concept, whereby we are utilizing much of the spaces that we have within the city to absorb as much water as possible to avoid the flooding in the lower part of the city. So densification gives us more spaces for us to do that, smart infrastructure, and also greening within the city. And we're also using not only the public spaces to do that, even the private spaces, so that we can also encourage our private developers to allow us to use the even permeable rocks that help us to recharge our aquifers, and that has really helping us to avoid much of the flooding within the city and other infrastructure, smart infrastructure. Thank you very
much. I'll add to what he has said, and I think I had talked about climate tools that have been developed with the support of AFD, and I think specifically Tool C, which I said we can be able to share more information, and anyone who is interested in knowing about these tools. Tool C helps you to assess the gas emissions that come with the infrastructure that you develop, and it also helps you now to also be able to identify mitigation measures. So even as you do the infrastructure, you should also now consider what is the impact of that on the environment. I wish there was somebody from the State Department of Housing here, but allow me to respond to the question she's asked on Kibera. People being given 10,000 shillings, which I believe is not even adequate for you. I think I will go back to what we had said. This issue of housing cannot be addressed by one partner, whether it is Muungano, Vijiji, whether it is FSD, whether it is government, nobody can be able to address this issue on their own. So, and I think the high time we stopped working in silos. It's high time we stopped working in silos, because I believe if we all came together and as a country and said we would want to address Kibera even in a different manner, FSD, government, Muungano, KDI, SDI, I believe something can be done. And I think for me, I will keep on talking about the Mukuru SPA that brought 42 partners together. So why is it that we still want to continue working in silos? So Sita, Muturi, kindly, let's think about working together, because working in silos has not solved any problem.
You're very right. Then finally, Dinah?
I think for my case, I will not be responding. I will be appreciating the comment, the point from, I can't remember his name, but who has talked about PGF, about the youth, involvement of the youth, and also the person who also talked about the youth and waste management when it comes to informal settlements. And just make a comment and say that I think there is really a big space. It may sound like what everybody says, but there is space for the youth to be involved. There is space because even when you go to these informal settlements, most of the initiatives and activities that are happening there, whether it is for climate adaptation and mitigation, whether it is for maintaining water and sanitation and cleanliness and all these other, even housing development, we see the youth being at the center of these initiatives. But how can this then be harnessed? I think it's a question to all of us, because I wouldn't say I have a response to it, but it's a call to all of us.
Thank you everyone, and a big clap to our panelists. Like I said before, these are two very important dimensions that are happening in our lifetime. The matters climate, and matters urbanization, and of course housing that goes with that. Please take note. Sorry, I forgot to introduce the LAN platform, and LAN stands for Leiden-Delft-Erasmus-East Africa Research Network. Leiden-Delft-Erasmus are universities based in the Netherlands, but they have come together, put resources together to also work, support, collaborate with partners in East Africa, matters research, matters development in various sectors. So we have an exhibition stand. Please visit the stand so that you may be able to learn more about the network and how you can be able to tap into